Hello again, ladies and gentlemen, this is Many Ninjas here for another little short video, so to speak. We're gonna do one last little thing, one more Belmont run of the boss rush mode, but we're not gonna play as Just. For those who noticed the blue screen, or the blue title screen, you know exactly what code I entered at the Konami screen. So, as the Easter egg for this title, if you enter the Konami code starting at the Konami screen when it boots up, you can play boss rush mode as the original NES-styled Simon Belmont. What this means for this mode, on top of slightly different music, as you can probably hear in the background, Simon, compared to the other playable characters in this mode, is, for one, a lot slower. He has no dashes of any sort there. You're basically limited to your NES moveset, although of course you do also have the benefit of incredibly high damage compared to everyone else to help compensate that, as well as a much higher HP total. Not to mention some of your sub-weapons, especially with the added damage you do, are incredibly over the top. The reason I chose the cross for this one is because while I was getting, for most of the bosses up to a certain point, much higher damage rating with things like the holy water, unfortunately, because the holy water also bounces downward or kind of falls upon the first hit with gravity, it makes it effectively useless against certain later bosses, which you really need something that's a multi-hitting weapon like the cross that can just go back and forth to really take care of certain later bosses. I'll point out which one I'm particularly talking about once we get there. The sheer fact that Simon does so much insane damage on his own, including his sub-weapons, are all doing triple-digit hits, 103 by default, makes it that you can basically mow through most of the bosses at a very quick pace, which is very important because Diamond himself can't move worth a damn. Also, unlike the other characters, he only has one jump. This can become a problem with certain later bosses, but with the amount of HP they gave him for this mode, it kind of evens things out. Just don't expect to do a real speedrun with this character. It's not going to happen. You won't be getting any kind of world record with this character. I would say it's appropriate to fight off the Skull Knight as Simon, but realistically you face Skull Knight in Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, where you were actually playing as Trevor, so close but not quite. The only other thing I'd have to toss on, unfortunately, now that I think about it, Simon has the same issue as Just Belmont does in this game, where if you were standing on one of those upper pillars and tried to whip while you're crouching, unfortunately it would not hit your enemy. Being able to hit certain enemies from the upper area is really something that was only kind of limited to Maxim, and that's because he had a very particular hitbox due to his otherwise useless crouching attack that made it possible. Even getting a hit a few times, I still have most of my health, as you can probably see. Realistically, I'm just trying to stock up on hearts at this point. You can stock up to 249 as Simon. While I won't need it for most of the bosses, there will be that one boss, which I'll bring up when we get a little closer there, that I really do need it for. Most part, the golem I'd say is a bit more annoying for the other two player characters just because their jumps are a bit higher. Simon's jump, while the attack is kind of slow coming out, is actually pretty perfectly height, so if you begin at your attack at the top of the jump, you should be able to hit the orb there pretty reliably. Unfortunately, it takes forever to get out of the hit state, or out of the attack state, in order to begin another jump and attack again. That would actually be one of the few bosses where you can crouch and attack properly. He's just tall enough in order to make that work. For some of the other enemies, not so much. Unfortunately, did take a few hits there. I'm at half health. I might as well pick up a orb here. Unfortunately, I can tell you right now, I've actually been trying multiple times in early recordings prior to this one. I don't think you can get any of the good or excellent ratings for timing your attack just right with Simon. Also, I did do a little extra research in the background. As far as anyone can tell, it doesn't actually do anything extra if you happen to get the pose bonuses. The only case that you can actually get extra is actually as part of a fan main game. I'm trying to remember what the name of it. The sad part is, I know it's Zero's Castlevania thing. It's based off the, or built with the Mugen fighting game engine, actually. I've also seen it referred to as CV Fighter. I can't remember what the damn name of it right now, which is the sad part, because it's actually a really fun game. But generally, only in that one fan game, by getting the extra ratings, can you actually get it so that it'll increase the stats for your fighters. As well as a few extra bonuses depending on what character you're playing as. In terms of fighting off with the devil here, when he's grounded, you can do a lot of damage with Simon. But when he's flying in the air, just because Simon is really limited in the air, and he has limitations and all, it's much harder to fight in the air when you're facing off with the devil up there. You kind of have to hope that he's somewhere around the count in order, or one of those platforms in order to hit it more reliably. But if you happen to have holy water and get devil in order to fly close enough to one of the platforms that you can just toss a holy water and hit him for a bunch of hits, you can actually kill him within seconds, I can first find. So that's actually the same for holy water for most ground-based enemies, for that matter. It's actually really obscene when I try that. I don't normally bring in holy water, just because I know they're an issue with some of the later bosses. Giant Merman is a case where you have an enemy that's too short in order to whip properly from the platforms. If you were playing as Maxim, that wouldn't be a problem in this case. Fortunately, Giant Merman is a wuss. Let's carry on. It's important to collect the hearts for what I'm going to need them really for later. But the stalling when you're landing for like a good half a second or something is just killing me here. With Maxim, I was just able to literally kind of pick the things up and keep dashing through everything, which makes the slowdown very noticeable. Max Slimer is another just resized version of a normal enemy, just a giant version of it. Nothing to be worried about. Only took a hit because I was being careless with where the smaller Slimers were breaking off to. Speaking of giant enemies that, quite frankly, aren't worth a damn, the Peeping Big. In this case, I actually forgot the Peeping Big had this bouncing attack until the Simon runs again, just because with everyone else I killed so very quickly that it never actually comes up. In the multiple Maxim runs, which when I was practicing, including the actual recorded one, never saw it once. And I honestly re-recorded the Maxim attempt at least a few different times over. And I had to say 4 or 5 just because I was trying to get the fastest one possible. And in some cases I inwardly died because I kind of botched up things, usually around the around the death fight. Just because Maxim has really low HP, I find. Alright, now facing off with the Shadow here. If you have the Holy Water, this fight is a joke. Even with the cross, it's still not too bad there. You can honestly kill off, as long as you're using the right sub-weapon and hitting things correctly, you can kill off the Shadow before it can even assume the third form. There you go. Even more insanely fast with Simon there. It's actually rather ridiculous how much damage he does compared to everyone. I know it's because he can't move worth a damn, but still. Alright. Legion Saint. This is one of the bosses where if you happen to have holy water, it doesn't work as well just because Legion Saint is constantly in the air. It's not the problem boss I was talking about, but it definitely doesn't help. Generally, if you want a sub-weapon that honestly kind of can deal with a bit of everything there, Cross is probably my first pick, I find. If it isn't going to be Cross, I would recommend maybe Axe, actually, in order to deal with certain specific bosses, but I don't know how much damage it does. I think it might do a little bit less damage, but maybe the knife might be another good pick. I haven't tried that one just yet, so I'll have to kind of double check it later and kind of put it in the notes. But I think knife might be a good pick as well. You want something that can generally move in the air, and I imagine the knife could also be spammed a bit faster. Against Pazuzu, unfortunately we still have a case. If you can kill those fireballs, I don't know how still. Either that, I just don't have a character that can kill it fast enough, do enough damage. But, fortunately, even taking a few hits along the way, he still can't make up for the amount of damage that Simon can do. We need another orb just for a bit of health pickup, and let's keep on going. Alright, Minotaur level 2. Basically the same thing as the normal Minotaur, except that the ball and chain there, or they prefer to call it a flail, is actually a bit more dangerous just because even when it's not being wielded against you, you can actually still hit you for damage, which is actually kind of weird. You figure it would only hit you or really hurt you when it was moving. If I was to walk under there, I would have actually taken damage. And on some other runs, I've actually had it so I was caught on the wrong end of it and was kind of trapped in place by the, not by the Minotaur, but by the ball and chain for quite a few hits. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but it's really annoying. And when you can't dash your way out of it, it's a lot of cheap damage. Here's the problem boss with Holy Water. Here's the problem boss for Simon as a whole, I personally found. While you can whip it fast enough in order to get the things open there, generally you need something like Cross, I find, in order to get it to stay open, so you can actually damage the boss. And you need the Cross in order to actually reach it, so you can actually damage the boss properly. It's just plain, as far as I know, the fact is, Simon can't attack this boss fast enough in order to not only keep it open, but to do damage at the same time. This is where I used up a good chunk of the hearts that I've been saving up to this point. And this fight has been going... Actually, I'd say this is a really bad fight so far. Normally by now it'd be open again, I'd be able to do damage. I've wasted a lot of hearts to get up to this point. And it's not like Legion Corpse even has a ton of health, it's just... It takes a while to get it open and to keep it open long enough in order to kill it. And I had to take quite a few hits in order to get there, so I need to take an orb. Even then, that's the worst boss, I'd say, for a Simon Belmont run at this point. So now we can start stockpiling hearts for later on. Most of the boss fights up to this point are pretty downhill. There's only one and more that has part of the boss fight where it still would be troublesome. Talos is not that troublesome boss. Talos is stupidly easy and can be killed really quickly with Simon. I could even kill him even faster if we start using some of the crosses at this point. Not that one though, because I poorly timed it. Yeah, Talos is a complete joke when you're using Simon. It isn't even challenging normally, but with Simon it's not even a question. Alright, I'm trying to remember who's the next up to Talos off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure I should be facing off against Death soon. Speak of the devil. Well, not the devil. I already beat him in an earlier fight. He was much earlier there. Form 1 of Death is probably the last real big hurdle for a Simon run, just because he spends most of his time in the air. You have to kind of hope that he stays close enough to one of the platforms there so you can kind of stand and wail with him. Or do this. It's pretty easy to dodge all around, and Death will just stay in place and take a lot of damage. But it's basically Death's mobility that makes him harder to hit. Once he goes into Form 2, he can go into certain patterns, which kind of make it easier to either hit him directly or to throw a cross at him in order to just kind of let the boomerang action do the work for you. If you had a bit more mobility, like a second jump with Simon, this would be even easier for this part, actually. Once you get rid of Death's first form, unless you do something particularly stupid with the very next one, which is actually the second last boss before, or the last boss originally, say, before Dracula. This basically means if you beat Death, you basically beat the mode already. So now with Death Vanquish, we still have 83 hearts. We're picking up another, I think 25 or so. It's at a 25 to 30. Okay, let's see, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 30 hearts. Another 30 hearts before Cyclops here. Cyclops can actually do a lot of damage to Simon, but you can also kill him very quickly. The key basically is just to make sure you don't get hit by the hammer. And yeah, basically as long as you steer clear of the hammer, even if he does manage to get a few dashes into you just because you're out of place to go on a platform, it's still pretty easy. It's actually surprising they put something with that pretty much low relatively of a HP factor for a boss just before Dracula. I guess it's kind of a breather boss of sorts. Anyway, that's the last one. We are now heading into the quote-unquote throne room of the area. Dracula Wrath Form 1 is nothing to call home about. It's your standard Dracula form. Everyone knows this one. It's harder to hit all 3 projectiles at once, though, just because... Oh, didn't realize at first you could actually hit him up on there. Yeah, it's kind of hard to deal with the fireball just because Simon does attack so very slowly. But fortunately, Dracula Form 1 is tall enough so you can actually hit him even from above the platform. And Dracula Form 2 here, you don't need to save those hearts anymore, so just take care of business. 17 minutes, 47 seconds. Yeah, not a great speed, but it does the job. But what we are treated to is a custom ending if you beat the round or beat boss run with Simon. Nice little touch there, a nice kind of reference to first Castlevania title, which is what Simon is mostly based off of. Simon Belmont forever indeed. Alright, I don't feel like playing a regular just Belmont run. I think at this point, I'm happy with what we've done with the boss rushes for Harmony of Dissonance here. I was asked if I was going to be doing an Area of Sorrow run. I've actually already done one at this point. It's already on the channel. So now I'm kind of wondering where else I'm going to be going here. I could go with the CV Fighter, or pretty much serious Castlevania game, and try at least the normal run with one of the characters from that. Haven't done that in a while, so that might be interesting there. Or I could be kind of transitioning back to some more regular Retro Ninja gaming. But I think since we are in the Halloween thing, I want to do something kind of more thematic still. Anyway, that's all for now, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, top 5, that's not bad. Alright, I'll catch you all later. Take care.